Welcome to Travolting, hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Recapping the past 20 episodes, the first era of Travolta. Enjoy the episode.
Hey,
hello,
Jeff.
welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, hello, hello.
You folks have a special episode this week. We're not covering any specific movie, but as we had promised last week in the Look Who's Talking Now episode, we've reached the end of an era of Travolta, the beginnings era, as we're calling it.
The beginnings era.
Yeah, the first 20 movies, the first nearly 20 years.
20 out of
67 movies we'll be covering.
67 movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the math in my head. 45-year career so far.
Yeah. And so
46.
we covered the first 18 years.
We've covered the first 18 years at this point.
With Devil's Reign.
Starting with The Devil's Reign, ending with Look Who's Talking Now.
Yeah.
The beginnings or rise era, whatever you want to call it.
Would you really call it the Rise era?
Like I said last week, in a large graph form, this is, even though like half of it is like a collapse, it is still the rise to Pulp Fiction, to his like A-list stardom.
Yeah.
To him becoming like one of the biggest his renaissance. It's a rise to his renaissance.
Yeah, it's just it's hard for me because like I consider like the true beginning. Because, yeah, you always have a few movies you start off with here and there, but you always have, like, one that's considered your beginning.
Yeah.
And that's none other than Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
Like, you see, you might say, well, Devil's Reign, Carrie, Boy in the Plastic Bubble. First off, Devil's Reign, he's an extra. Carrie's supporting actor. Boy in the Plastic Bubble was a small TV movie he did when he was 18. 17.
And, like, 18. Logically, if we were to break this down in the most intense way, there would be 5 eras of Travolta.
Yes. Yes.
I don't want us to have a 5-act podcast. I think we're fine with a 3-act.
Okay.
So we're condensing two of them into another era.
Yeah, but you have that immediate blowout, you might say, with Saturday Night Fever, Grease. We can do a moment by moment in between. But then you have Urban Cowboy, Blowout. So that's
Great
like
movies.
The 4, like, you know, again, moment by moment, almost impossible to find. So if you just like remove that, his first 4 movies are good movies.
Yes. A discount. He started Carrie even.
Supporting actor. Again, I'm thinking like
his
official start.
Yes.
Is Saturday Night Fever.
Yes.
And so, like, if you consider that, and if you also make the concession that moment by moment is barely a movie because it's so hard to find, and like, you know, they wiped it off the face of the map. Which
he kind of has an unimpeachable run for like 5 years.
Yeah,
at the beginning of this era, and we had a lot of fun talking about that.
Right, we did.
And he's someone who really he didn't have a slow rise. Like he wasn't your Tom Hanks who like works a lot in comedy before popping off with like, you know, Forrest Gumps and Philadelphia's and whatnot.
I have a question for you, Jeff, because I thought I saw this as like more like us just recapping for the audience, but also as a dialogue between the two of us as well. Do you think that was good for him or bad for him? Should he have started off with more flops than he did and then gotten to like a Saturday Night Fever later?
I don't necessarily know if I would say flops, but there was nowhere to go but down from where he was. Like, he didn't have a base to build himself off of. Like, even though he was Vinnie Barbarino on Welcome Back, Kotter, a show we will never cover.
Fuck you if you think we will.
Which, you know, provided him with a lot of stardom. In terms of being a movie star, capital M.
Well, it's kind of like Robin Williams in a way.
Yeah.
Robin Williams started with Mork and Mindy. And then got into like Good Morning Vietnam and like some other films in between there, and then had like a great good Oscar with Good Will Hunting.
The difference is Robin Williams had a lot of tarmac.
Yes.
He had a lot of time to get that plane off the ground.
He did. Yeah.
Travolta was in Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yep.
Which was a TV show. And then when they're like, okay, Hollywood, in its wisdom, decided this guy's a movie star. We're going to make him a movie star.
Right.
And rather than, you know, provide that kind of path that a lot of the great actors had who endured in the culture. You know, your Harrison Fords, your Tom Hanks, the people who have lasted for longer than like 5 to 10 years, they almost always started with a lot of stuff to kind of get their name known, to prove their bona fides or bona fides. I don't know.
I don't know how to say. I actually don't know how to say it either.
Yeah, bona fides, to prove their talent, prove their skill, establish themselves as a real like actor before they became superstars. Like, you know, even
their
though
official star movie.
Yeah,
like for Harrison Ford, he did stuff before Star Wars.
Like he's
and
popping
Indiana
up in
Jones.
American Graffiti. He's like a lot of these movies aren't great. They aren't things that like really exist.
Or they're great, but they're not the liftoff film.
Yeah, they're movies that establish him as a real actor.
Yeah.
Kind of get him into the public consciousness, but not in a big way. And then, you know, Star Wars and Indiana Jones, he pops off.
I just thought of something like,
Yeah.
you know, rearrange the order of this for John Travolta a little bit. What if Blowout came before Saturday Night Fever? Still objectively good movie, right? Objectively good movie, but not a movie that was seen as a major hit. He goes from that to Grease.
Yeah.
Then Saturday Night Fever.
That would have definitely been an awesome rejigger.
Right?
I think he even needs more movies coming out. What he needs is more supporting roles.
Yeah. He goes right into leads.
Because he does Devil's Reign and Carrie, and then he's leads up until Boris and Natasha.
Fuck, really?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the list, and you're right.
All of this is supporting his lead role.
Wow.
He needs something like we had talked about with like a Tom Hanks or Harrison Ford, or you know, I'm trying to think of other actors who are not just Tom Hanks and Harrison Ford.
That had to be on him, don't you? He had to gotten offers to do some supporting stuff, but right? Don't you think?
Maybe the 70s were a different Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it can almost, and you can't blame him for just like being offered all these lead roles and taking them.
Well, okay, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
Was he like? Imagine how many movies are between Staying Alive and Pulp Fiction. Like, how many? Like, it's Staying Alive and Pulp Fiction. That's like what? 12. Okay, so he wasn't just offered 12 movies in that. How many years is that? Blowout was 1980.
You're saying in this era?
Yeah, I'm saying this era between 1980 Blowout and 1994 Pulp Fiction. In that 14 years, he wasn't just offered 12 movies.
Oh yeah, he was offered more.
He was offered probably 50 movies, but maybe 18 were leads and 32 were supporting.
Yeah.
And my problem, my beef, my contention, you might say,
is that he was so stuck in the idea of himself being a lead actor.
Right.
And I agree with that, yes.
Yeah.
Stuff like he should have started. You know who I realized is a great parallel to him in the modern culture? Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence was on a TV show that like no one watched, the Bill Engvall Show.
Oh, no.
Which is less existent than Welcome Back, Kotter.
You're right.
And then she pops off with a successful indie movie.
Winter's Bone. Yeah, right. Winter's Bone.
She gets nominated for an Oscar. And then it's just star role, star role, star role, star role. The only supporting role she's really doing is the X-Men movies, which she did not want to be in.
Right.
She's tracking, and then American Hustle, maybe. But, you know, she just launched so quickly.
It's tough calling those supporting roles.
Yeah. She launched so, like, even X-Men Days of Future Past, like, forces her into a lead role because of her fame.
Right.
But she's launched so quickly from obscurity to A-list, like, first billing. She doesn't have that, like, groundwork, that, like, track that she rides up it. It's just a quick jump. And now, look at Jennifer Lawrence's careers, you know, after she had, like, 2 flops, Red Sparrow and Mother. Which she is good in both of those. I like those movies.
Yeah, she's not the issue in any of those films.
It just kills her career.
Same with Travolta, though. I mean, when all the movies we watched, he was the problem in Moment by Moment.
Yeah.
Like, that was him.
No, it's just that a movie starring him blew up, and Hollywood decided this guy isn't... He's not...
Yeah, he's not... Well, he's also kind of the issue in The Experts.
But he had nothing to... Neither him nor Jennifer Lawrence after their movies exploded. They had only ever proven themselves as an A-list star. Now that they're not making money as an A-list star, Hollywood has no, like, quantifiable fallback for them. It's like, oh, these people aren't doing the thing they do.
So what do we do with them?
I don't know what to do with them.
We don't put them in a franchise.
Whereas if they're an actor who had that, like, tarmac to kind of lift off slowly from, Hug, be like, okay, they're not working as an A-list star anymore.
They can go back
but they've proven themselves as a solid supporting role.
Yeah, right.
And they give them those roles.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Like, do you think... Could there have been any other TV offers for him in the 80s and maybe early 90s that he could have maybe he was offered and decided not to do? Like, again, I make that prior example of, like, between Blowout and Pulp Fiction, he was probably given, like, 30, 40 supporting roles and maybe might have turned him down. Because, like, no, I'm a lead. Same scenario, same example, but replace with the movie roles lead supporting with just movies and versus TV. And were there options for him of going back into the TV world?
And I don't blame him, especially in the 80s, for not wanting to go back to TV.
Because that was kind of saw as
TV
if you go
was
back
not
to TV
as prestige as it is now.
Well, it was the image, right? Because I think it's different now with TV, but especially back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, if you were an actor who went from movies to TV, that meant you were on the decline.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like
if you jump from TV to movies, it was like a privilege that Hollywood was extending this to you. You were being welcomed into the elite.
Yeah, with TV, with movies to TV. That is, yeah.
Whereas nowadays it's a lot more of an open flow between them. Everything is content you will consume.
Well, now it's more so like TVs are given like the
movie budgets,
the mid-level movie budgets that we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's like micro-budget indies or gigantic budget blockbuster franchises, whereas there's not really any room for those mid-level movie budgets.
The $10 to $100 million movies don't exist anymore.
Those are TV episodes now.
Yeah, it's TV.
So that's the difference in today's world, but back then it was like if you went from like, the mid-level tier, which is I think was majority of what he wasn't in like a...
Yeah.
What's out of the movies we've covered... And this is hard to ask for you to know, but like, which of those movies was the biggest budget? I want to know what the biggest budget he worked with.
I would almost certainly say it was Staying Alive or Blowout, or maybe I would say it's one of those two.
But would those movies, is those being his largest movies? Like I just wonder. Were those considered big budget movies at the time when they were made?
I think at the time these movies were not like mega budget.
Yeah,
they were in that middle ground that we talk about that doesn't exist anymore.
Because this is the 80s, so like compare Blowout to, I don't know, The Terminator.
Yeah, or
Alien. Mm-hmm. Does it match? Is it lower? Is it higher?
I mean, like I can check. Alien was shot for $11 million. Blowout was shot for $18 million.
So it's
bigger.
So yes, John Travolta has, we can say like he was in big budget movies.
Yes.
But for the
Staying Alive was $22 million.
So, but the realm that he mostly lived in his early career, Saturday Night Fever and Grease, those are probably
like mid-budget movies.
Mid-budget level movies. So,
and he and I'm sure had after Blowout and Staying Alive, we talked about how we retreated a lot into like familiar things.
Yeah.
If he had rejiggered himself and been like, okay, and seen the writing on the wall that this A-list thing, because I don't want to say the guy's not a movie star. He is a movie star.
He is usually not the problem.
He has the charisma of a movie star. He has the looks of a movie star.
Yeah. And like I said, he's usually not the problem.
But if he had rejiggered himself and said, okay, the A-list thing isn't working out right now, I got to go back to I got to pull my bootstraps up, go back to what I know, and just try and retool myself as like a character actor, supporting player in the 80s. I'm sure he could have popped up in some really successful stuff.
Yeah.
But he kept trying to like save the sinking ship of his A-list stardom. And it just kept on bringing him further down.
Well, it's like in 1980, a Blowout, what would have been a supporting franchise role that he could have landed, because he's obviously not going to play John Connor in the Terminator.
Yeah.
He's not going to play Kyle Reese or the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger's role. I'm just thinking of blockbusters in the 80s right now.
I think, like, as an example, I think he could have been like a Kyle Reese type in a Terminator movie. He's not the lead, and like I don't want to just pigeonhole him into franchisey stuff, but
Yeah, I'm saying like you take a step back from A-list lead to franchise supporting.
Yeah, like franchise supporting, or even just like mild budget movie supporting. Like he could have played, for an example, like the supporting teacher role in a movie, which he does try and shout, but he makes it his movie.
Right.
Like there were so many movies that he could have wedged into and found his place in a non-lead role.
Yeah.
That instead he just is like, I want to be the lead actor, and Hollywood is saying this guy is a lead actor.
I'm looking up Best Picture winners in the 80s, and I'm trying to remember their supporting roles and seeing, like, that could have been one John Travolta had taken. So that's what I'm looking up
Like, there were plenty of directors who I'm sure could have really, like, made Travolta's 80s sing. He just was, like I said, stuck to the sinking ship of his stardom.
What if he was in Platoon?
Yeah, like a Platoon or something.
But not as, like, not the Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Or not...
And here's the thing that's interesting about Travolta.
Yeah.
His 90s and early 2000s are what his 80s should have been. He learns his lesson, and he's like, he does a lot of A-list movies in those times, but he's willing to take the supporting part.
That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point.
And that's if he kind of like I don't want to say he gets his ego in check, because he does like achieve higher levels than ever before. But he gets willing to, like, leave that at the door and find the way he can best service the story being told. Instead of the story being about him, he's servicing the story. And that's what he needed to learn, and he didn't learn in the 80s.
That's a long lesson to learn.
Yes.
10 years it takes you to learn that lesson.
Yes.
12 years, really.
And it was just the way that Hollywood's, like, and even Scientology's, like, ego-building structure. Like, it builds you up so high. Even those movies that he's in. Like, Saturday Night Fever, Grease, it's all about being on the top of the world.
Yeah, and staying alive. He's literally stealing the lead role.
Yes. And it's hard for a guy to go from that to, like, taking a step back and retooling himself as someone who's there to serve the story.
Yeah. Damn.
And, you know, he does learn the lesson. We're going to get into that. But he's going to lose sight of the lesson again at the end of this next era.
Yeah. Because, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much with all the different eras, but once he loses sight of that lesson again, to our knowledge, he really hasn't.
He hasn't gotten it back yet.
He really hasn't. To this day, he really hasn't gotten that back yet.
He's still working in the realm of A-list. He's trying to still be in the realm of A-list stardom instead of supporting player.
And so, like, what do you think it is now? Maybe we shouldn't talk about that.
Well, let's not talk too much about now.
Yeah.
We want to still focus on the 80s. And that...
It gives us hope, though, right? That if he could have learned this lesson once.
I'm waiting for some great director to really get a John Travolta comeback vehicle, because I think it can happen. We'll talk about it when we get to these movies later.
There's some new and upcoming directors who I would like.
Who I'd like to see work
from
with
the
him.
3 good movies they made so far. Like, I would love to see what they would do with John Travolta, a willing John Travolta who would jump into a role like he would in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, like as an example, in modern day, 2 actors who, like, I feel like had kind of lost a lot of their luster in the early 2010s, Harrison Ford and Al Pacino, are kind of 2 guys who everyone's like, they're an unimpeachable legend. We will never take that away. They're not putting out their best work right now. They've kind of lost sight of... They're kind of just there for the paycheck almost.
Yeah.
But I think Harrison Ford's put some of the best work of his career in the last few years. I think between The Force Awakens, where he's working with a director who knows how to work with actors. For all his faults, J.J. Abrams is great with actors. Really got an enlivened performance out of him in The Force Awakens. in Blade Runner 2049. He's astonishingly good.
Yeah. Blade Runner 2049 is the kicker for me.
Yeah, or...
Because you could say Force Awakens was a cash grab. Blade Runner 2049 is sequel
made
to...
like no money.
Made like no money.
Yeah.
And so...
He's astonishingly good in it.
And to that point, I think, you know, when you watch Star Wars, it's like, oh, of course, like, he would go back to Star Wars and Harrison.
But he doesn't
and
like...
Han
He never
Solo.
liked Star Wars.
He never did, and so...
And the fact that he's giving such, like... And his performance in that is just, like, really enlivened. He seems really alive in it. It's something you hadn't seen for a while from...
It could have easily not have been.
Yes.
Could have easily not... It could have been a very shoehorned Han Solo... And it would have been very destructive to like the character that we knew. But the Blade Runner one, I especially, because it's like when he did,
and he didn't like Blade Runner.
He didn't like Blade Runner either. Like, but he really does a good job in 2049.
He's working with a director who's passionate about the material, gets him passionate about the material,
and that's Denis Villeneuve, who had before Blade Runner 2049 had done like
The Arrival,
Prisoners, Arrival. Like Denis Villeneuve still kind of like. I don't want to start a podcast. I don't want to start a I sometime want to start a podcast, Denis Villeneuve, but like this is a guy who had started making more thriller psychological stuff, who had slowly eased his way to where now he's thought of as a sci-fi director.
Yes.
It's interesting to me. But so in the Blade 2049, that's like his first like he's giving
a
small
real
franchise,
performance in that movie.
But a small franchise, but a franchise nonetheless, because like Arrival, big budget, not a franchise.
And you know what the key to both of those Harrison Ford performances, besides having a director who's really great or great with them, is that both of those movies he's a supporting player and he's willing to be the supporting player.
Yeah. Amen.
He doesn't pop up for 45 minutes in The Force Awakens. He, spoiler alert, lets himself die at the end. He gets stabbed through the chest and thrown off a cliff.
Well, there are people who thought that he wanted that to happen.
Yeah, I want to die.
Like, kill my character so I can't. Thanks. Kill my character so I can't come back. Yes. But then when he comes back in Rise of Skywalker in that short little cameo, that feels different. That doesn't feel like I have to come back as a ghost flashback. It almost seemed like, no, like this seems like right for the moment.
Yes.
As much as I hate Episode 9.
Yeah, important newsflash, we aren't big on The Rise of Skywalker. But no offense to anyone.
But that moment with Kylo Ren and Harrison Ford,
it's a tender scene.
It's a tender scene. It's a pretty good moment.
To jump to my other example, because I don't want to make this the Ford cast, though I'd love to do that one day. Al Pacino. Very like, he literally said like, I enjoyed doing bad movies and then just giving it a little bit more life, which is fine. But
that is fine. That's honestly fine.
Guy for like 30 years is just kind of working in the dregs. Dunkachino, Martin Scorsese comes in, gives him Jimmy Hoffa, The Irishman, gets such energy and life out of a guy who most people had written off.
Yeah.
Al Pacino is amazing in that movie. Mm-hmm. One of the best performances I've seen in recent years. And he's astonishing. And it just goes to show that the right director working with the right person can bring someone you'd counted out back into the fold. It's what's going to happen next week when we talked about Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Everyone had written Travolta off. Quentin Tarantino sees the promise in those early movies.
I just wonder, do you think there was ever a conversation with Travolta and Tarantino of like, not only is he a supporting character, but he's a supporting timeline in that movie? Mm-hmm. Because the timeline, I mean, everyone talks about Pulp Fiction with like the non-continuous narrative, but
Travolta's credited as the lead of that movie. But in terms of the actual structure of the plot, it's an ensemble. It's an ensemble piece.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not solely focused on his timeline.
Yes,
there are chunks of the movie never see Travolta.
He shares lead with Bruce Willis, even though Travolta is probably the most recurring between them. I would not say there's a lead of that movie. Yeah. There's a bunch of characters and we're following their stories.
Right.
And so I think, Tarantino has the knowledge and Travolta is convinced by Tarantino's enthusiasm, much like, Ford is with Abrams or Villeneuve or Pacino is with Scorsese. He's convinced by that enthusiasm and he's a great director, brings him back into the fold of Hollywood. Shows them what he can do.
That renaissance, though, pretty short-lived.
We'll get to it. It's not as short-lived as you may think, but it isn't necessarily a long-term renaissance.
Right.
But we'll the next era we'll be getting into is Travolta's A-list stardom and Travolta's renaissance.
What are we calling the era after that?
The final one?
Yeah.
TBD. I still got
TBD.
Yeah. That era being
I would probably
Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3
and onward. Yeah.
onward. That's we'll decide on a name for that when we get to it.
Okay.
But the next era will be, A-list star.
In this first era, we're calling the beginnings.
Yeah, beginnings era. It's a rough naming, but it works for the structure. Now, before we go, do we want to discuss our favorite movies from this? I mean, Blowout is our
just about to say the same thing.
Blowout, I think, is both of our favorites.
I was about to ask you, but then my internal thought was, well, we're both going to say Blowout.
Yeah, Blowout. Blowouts are both of our favorites.
Blowouts both our favorites. What?
Who's your least favorite?
Well, okay, there are two more: least favorite and then underrated.
Ooh, yes.
So least favorite.
Boris and Natasha.
Well, hold on. Go up. Boris and Natasha, it doesn't exist to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a John Travolta movie.
Yes.
It's a cameo. So I'm not even going to count that. What is my... scroll up a little bit. You're missing The Devil's Reign Carrie. Okay. So we're looking at the whole roster here, folks. That's what we're looking at. So I'm not even going to count Boris and Natasha because, like, it's barely a fucking John Travolta movie. This is a notes thing. This is the thing I can look on my notes and honestly just be able to tell. Because, like, The Devil's Reign, no, it's barely a John Travolta movie. It's got William Shatner, who gives us some interesting things. I mean, Carrie's good. Boy in the Plastic Bubble is pretty tough. Looking at moment by moments. Moment by moment feels like the easy one. It would be easy to say moment by moment. Urban Cowboy's got the beard. Blowout. Just bear with me, folks, as I scroll through this. See, like, every little issue with these movies, there's one thing I can find that I enjoy. But I say the two lowest bits, there are two. That would be The Experts and Moment by Moment. Mm-hmm. The Experts doesn't really carry anything for me. I'm going to look back at my notes on The Experts. I just want to remember what I wrote down.
The Experts was kind of fun, though.
For you. I wrote notes on The Experts, right? It's perfect. Basements. No, The Experts is right after Basement. Perfect. Did I write?
Is giving me anxiety. The Experts is the one we recorded remote.
That's right. I did not take notes on The Experts. So I barely remember it. I'm gonna say, if I had to, like, in a knee-jerk reaction, pick my least favorite one, would be Moment by Moment.
My least favorite would be Chains of Gold.
Really?
I think it's a little worse than Moment by Moment. Moment by Moment at least has some funniness in that his name is Strip. Chains of Gold,
Strip.
Absolutely nothing happens. It's such a good...
Nothing happened in
such an annoying movie. And then our recording made me so angry. So yeah, Chains of Gold is my least favorite.
Moment by Moment's my least favorite.
What do you think the most underrated is? This would specifically be of the 80s movies that are bad.
I would say it's between Staying Alive and Perfect. Perfect had some moments for me.
Yeah, I would give it to Boris and Natasha.
Fuck
Boris
you.
and Natasha's a great movie.
Stop! Shut the fuck up!
I did actually enjoy Boris and Natasha, but no, I would say Perfect.
Yeah, I would say Perfect too, because Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta do have some good chemistry.
Perfect is a flawed movie, but a one I'm genuinely interested in.
It doesn't know what movie it is, but
one of those movies is pretty good.
But one of those movies is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Staying Alive is just like the parallels with his career are too perfect.
Yes, and Stallone.
As bad of a movie as it is, the parallels with Stallone's career and John Travolta's career, and he's doing a sequel to Saturday Night Fever to save his failing career.
And it blows up even more.
And it blows up even more. Like, honestly,
it is a fascinating movie.
It is such a fascinating movie to watch. I love it for that reason. Like,
hell yeah.
I don't love it. It's a bad movie, but there's so many like interesting bits about staying alive. But Perfect, I would say, is the most underrated.
I would agree.
Another thing though, favorite episode.
Ooh, favorite episode we've done
so far.
I mean, in terms of just pure quality discussion of the movie, it's hard to be Blowout.
It's hard to be Blowout. Mark Tilley shout out.
Yeah, Mark Tilley shout out. He really just showed up and was ready to shoot straight fire.
Yeah.
I think that's our best episode in regards to discussion of the movie. There's a lot to talk about. That's just a fascinating movie.
Yeah.
In terms of what I think our most entertaining episode is, might be Look Who's Talking.
With Mary Grace?
Yeah, when she dropped the Scientology bomb and you died.
Yeah, she did drop the Scientology bomb and killed me.
But Grease, our guest episodes are the ones that I think are the most rawly entertaining, just because that energy breaks up our dynamic.
Because you and I, like, sometimes we get broken by some of these movies a little too quickly, whereas somebody comes on and be like, no, wait, you didn't think about this.
Whether it's Kathy bringing like her energy from having seen Grease in the OG showing.
In the theater,
Yes, in the theater. Matt brought some like knowledge to Carrie.
Yeah.
Having some interest of it. Mark and Blowout, Mary Grace, and Look Who's Talking.
Just a huge shout out to all our guests who have come on so far.
We have some more. We have a lot of fun ones coming up.
We want more people on, even the movies that folks haven't seen.
Yes.
We would just love to have more guests because I feel like it does bring a lot more energy.
And we'll have a lot.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a lot
coming up. Do you have any closing thoughts on this era before we wrap this episode up?
Just that the 10 years, like, little bit in the 80s was hard to get through, but I'm glad we got through it. I found a lot more interesting bits about John Travolta than I was initially anticipating when we started this podcast, with like particularly with the rise and fall, how his instant climb to fame followed by his shattered long strut of like bad 80s movies, and but then going into his slow but sure rise, which starts strong with Pulp Fiction, but, has a small climb after that. There's a lot of interesting... I'm very fascinated to see where Travolta goes from here, and it's just like, watching these movies, I can't help but feel like I'm on a journey with this guy.
We are on a journey with this guy, and that's something...
In his career.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about yourself, Jeff?
Pretty much what you just said. It really... This is such an... I've never done this before with an actor. I've done it with directors, but to feel like we're on a journey with this guy trying to figure his career out and become the actor we know he can be is just... It's a magical experience, and I'm glad you're here to do it with me.
I'm glad you're here to do it with me,
We'll be in
Jeff.
the future.
And just to point out that it's funny that we started this podcast when we were two unemployed filmmakers.
Yes, and now we're way too busy.
And now, Jeff, you are staffing on a TV series.
As are you.
I'm staffing on a TV series. But you know what, folks?
We will do our best to keep the show as consistent as possible.
We're going to do our best to keep it as consistent and try to keep them punching out. And all we ask in return is a rate, review, like, and
review, subscribe. Remember the platforms we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Please follow us at Travolting Pod on Twitter or Instagram. Me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney.
Me on Instagram at Stuart Elmore 95.
And as always, special thanks to Michael Van Bogum Smith for the theme music that's taking you out, and Rebecca Johnson for our graphic design. Have a great week, everyone. See you with Pulp Fiction next week.
Bye.